welcome to the Essex Book Festival podcast. My name is Daisy and I'm going to be speaking to some of the people behind this year's festival. My guest today is a best-selling author who will be talking about her new psychological thriller Troublemaker on the 2nd of June at Gray's Central Library. Please welcome Lesley Kara. Hi.
Oh, hello, lovely to be here.
It's lovely to have you with us. We're going to be talking to you all about Troublemaker, which we're really excited about, and your event. But first off, let's just talk a little about you and, how you got into writing and, your previous books.
Okay, well, I was published quite late, actually. My first novel, my debut, The Rumour, wasn't published until I think I was 55, which seems quite young to me now, actually. But I'd been trying to write, I'd been writing most of my life, writing short stories, writing poetry, and then trying to get a novel written. But, life and work conspired against me. I was, I had 2 children, I was a teacher, and then I became a manager in education. So I had quite a busy, stressful job. At one point, I was sort of the director of quality at this large college of further education. So I was dealing with Ofsted and everything. That didn't leave much time for creative fiction. But I became quite ill. I had a condition called endometriosis, which some of your listeners might have heard of. And that was undiagnosed for 10 years. And when I finally had that diagnosed and had a series of operations, I was sick for a long while. I was sort of recuperating at home, and that's when I really started to think, this is my time. I have to do what I've always wanted to do and write a novel. So I applied for the Faber Academy writing a novel course and was very fortunate enough to get accepted on there. And it was a few years later, actually, after that I went in for a competition. It was called the Penguin Random House Daily Mail First Crime Novel Competition. I'd always recommend would-be aspiring writers going for competitions because it's a great way of getting your work seen by agents. And I didn't win it, but I was one of the runners-up. And that's really what led to me getting an agent and a book deal. And I've written 6 books since then. Troublemaker is my 6th. And I'm now writing a 7th, so I'm making up for lost time, shall we say.
That's really interesting to hear, though, about your sort of, background and coming to books like that. So let's talk a little bit about The Rumour, your first book. What was the sort of inspiration for that book, the sort of initial idea?
Yes, well, I didn't know this when I was writing it, but it was actually, at the time of writing it, it was in fact the 50-year anniversary of the very famous true life Mary Bell case. The woman, she was 10 years old actually when she murdered 2 little boys in the district of Newcastle. And it was also the 25-year anniversary of poor little Jamie Bulger's murder. So I think that maybe there was something in the zeitgeist and programmes perhaps on TV that I'd sort of taken on board subconsciously, I don't know. But I also did hear a rumour myself. I was in fact, I was living in Frinton at the time in Essex, and I overheard somebody in a changing room at a swimming pool talking about one of the James Bulger killers being in a safe house somewhere in Frinton or Clacton. I mean, it probably wasn't true because all these rumours they pop up all the time, don't they? But it just got me thinking, yes, that's interesting, the whole aspect of witness protection, although it's not called witness protection now, or everyone still does, but it's actually called protected persons now. It just got me thinking, about people who are rehabilitated, supposedly, particularly people who've committed dreadful crimes when they are children, and what it must be like to be released back into society under a new identity, and how difficult that must be. And also not just for them forging a new life, but for the victims. They're victims when they know that this person has now been released and they are getting a second chance at life when their loved ones, their children, don't. So it sort of brought me on to thinking about that whole sense of sort of vigilantism and the sense of justice and whether it can ever really be served, and whether justice, once it's served in a legal sense and someone's, done their sentence, but it's not served in a sort of emotional sense because there's never real closure for the victims' families. So that's really what got me thinking about writing the Rumour. And yeah, it wasn't the first novel I'd written. It was actually the second, because, well, no, actually it's probably about the fifth. I'd written lots of novels in the past that are still sort of festering in a box somewhere, probably at the bottom of one of my wardrobes. But yeah, so Who Did You Tell was the first book I wrote, and that's what got me my agent. But it was the Rumour that was published the first, because the publishers wanted to bring that out as the debut, and they were right. They were right to do so.
That's really interesting because so obviously you've written 6 books. You're now writing the 7th. How do you keep on finding these ideas and asking these questions? Because these are themes of justice and crime. These are big themes, aren't they? It's quite it's a big topic to explore.
Gosh, well, how do I keep coming up with ideas? I don't know. I'm quite a nosy person, so I'm often eavesdropping on other people's conversations. Reading the news, watching the news. I watch a lot of documentaries. Really just thinking about different things that could happen. Who Did You Tell? My second novel was actually inspired. A lot of them are inspired by things that have come into my own personal orbit. Obviously not the Rumour. The Rumour was me hearing a rumour and getting that idea. But Who Did You Tell was inspired by my experiences supporting a family member, my stepson. Sadly, he has passed away now. But he was an alcoholic, and so we supported him through rehab. And I really looked into the whole theme of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and the 12-step program. And I remember thinking, gosh, this is ripe for psychological thriller territory, because there you are in a group of strangers confessing all the dreadful things you've done under the influence of alcohol, and you don't really know who's listening or who they are. So that sort of came out of a personal experience. And I guess The Dare did. My third one did as well. That was sort of inspired by a walk that a friend and I used to do when we were 13, which I always think is a very dangerous age, 13, because you're sort of on the cusp of young adulthood and childhood. And it involved a railway crossing, and my friend and I always used to cross this open crossing. And that was back in the 70s, where parents didn't really know where their kids were. It wouldn't happen now. I think parents have a much more sort of, hopefully most of them, idea where their kids are, and they're a bit more worried about them going off on their own. But in the 70s, we just took a can of Tizer and some sweets and off we went. So yeah, the second one and the third one, I guess, were inspired by my own sort of experiences. And but the other one, The Apartment Upstairs, was actually partly inspired by the Fusilier Lee Rigby, when he was murdered outside the Woolwich Barracks. I used to live in that stretch of road when I moved to London. We lived in that road, and so when I went to work on the bus every morning, I would see all the floral tributes and the flags that people. Do you remember they put these tributes out for months on end, and eventually they were cleared because it was a shocking, horrible, brutal terrorist incident. But that just got me thinking about what it must be like to live in the house where somebody was murdered, and to have that sort of a floral tribute outside on the pavement. And the novel isn't about anything to do with terrorism, but it is about a murder and a niece coming to terms with the murder of her aunt, who lived in, funnily enough, the apartment upstairs, hence the title. So yes, I suppose my ideas come from a mixture of personal experience, things that have happened to people I know, and things I read about or hear about on the news.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So let's talk now about your new book, Troublemaker. So yeah, tell us what that's about, and yeah, how did you get inspired for that one?
Well, Troublemaker is set in Tunbridge Wells. As I am an Essex girl, I was born in Essex, but and lived in Essex, and then came back to Essex later, moved to Frinton. But I now live in Tunbridge Wells in Kent, and there are lots of runners in Tunbridge Wells. I mean, there are lots of runners everywhere. I don't run. I walk a lot, but I don't run. There are lots of runners. You see them all over the place with their Fitbits on, and so I had this idea that my main character might be a runner, a recreational runner, not a sort of professional runner. But it's about a woman. She's called Storm. I love the name Storm. I'm always attracted to interesting names. It's about a woman called Storm who witnesses a murder that nobody else sees except her, and nobody believes it's real because 2 years ago her younger brother, who suffered from, who had learning disabilities, he was tragically, fatally stabbed in a park, and so when she sees a very similar stabbing, the police, when they get there and there's no body and there's no blood and there's no crime, there doesn't seem to be any evidence of anything happening and nobody else has seen it, they assume that she's had some kind of post-traumatic imagining or flashback to what happened to her brother. And it turns out that she's seen other things that have come to nothing. And they kind of, that's hence the title. They think they're sympathetic, but they think she's a little bit of a troublemaker in that she keeps sort of calling them out for things that haven't happened. But of course, something has happened. And luckily for her neighbour, Lena, is a former police officer. And she believes Storm. She believes what she said because she's an experienced former police officer, and she kind of knows when people are telling the truth and when they're not. She has a sense about that, and so the two of them start sort of trying to find out what on earth has happened, and because she really did witness something that day, and what's more, the killer saw her. So is he coming for her now? So I won't say any more because that would be a spoiler. But I do hope the Tunbridge Wells Tourist Board aren't too cross with me because I don't think there's, I haven't heard of a similar crime in a park in Tunbridge Wells, but, crime happens everywhere, doesn't it? Even in tiny, sleepy little villages, awful things happen. So I've got the kind of brain that I suppose sees catastrophe everywhere. Perhaps that's, I don't know. That's why I come up with all these ideas. But my novels aren't graphic, they're not, I don't go into the horrible graphic detail. Maybe there'll be a little bit, but it's more about the psychological effect on the victims and the mystery and the suspense rather than sort of, graphic depiction of any kind of violence. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. I feel like everyone is going to want to read that now because it sounds very interesting, very exciting. I do love it's such a popular trope in lots of different sort of genres, but I do love a trope of you're not sure of what's real, what's not, unreliable narrators.
Unreliable, yes, and I think that's quite. It's not necessarily a staple of a psychological thriller, but it is, I think it's nice for the reader to think, well, hang on, is Storm really imagining this, or has she actually seen something? And there is, there is some doubt as to whether she's entirely, and even Lena, her friend, who does believe her, even she has moments of thinking, oh, what am I doing getting involved in all this? Maybe she's just sort of, making all of this up. But she clearly isn't, or there wouldn't be a story to tell.
Yes, I do often think that when you're sort of reading a book and they'll be like, oh, well, no, everything's fine. You're like, well, there's 300 pages left to go, so gotta be something. It's quite interesting though, talking about the psychological thriller genre, because this is a genre that's really gone from strength to strength, hasn't it? And it's still so popular. What is it, do you think, that it just really captures our imagination about it?
I don't know. It is a very popular genre. I think perhaps romantasy might have taken over for a little while, but it's still a very crime fiction and psychological thriller, or domestic noir as it's sometimes called, is very, very popular. And I don't think there's any signs of that abating anytime soon, thank goodness, because I love reading it as well as writing it. Why do people love it? I don't know. I think a lot of psychological thrillers are about ordinary people thrust into extraordinary situations. A lot of them, not exclusively, but a lot of them do take place in the home or in a domestic setting, which is where we're supposed to feel safest, aren't we? When we put the key in the front door and shut the door behind us, it's where we're meant to feel safest. I played on that a lot in Troublemaker. I won't say too much more about that. But so anything that sort of makes us feel anxious about our own home or the people that we love and trust the most, often they can be, in some cases, they can be the most dangerous. So, I'm probably terrifying everybody now. But yes, I think that's why they appeal, because people can identify with those situations and think, oh my goodness, yeah, I understand that. That could have been me.
I think you're completely right. I do think that psychological thrillers, perhaps more so than many genres, often have very relatable heroes or protagonists. They're often people that, it could be you or it could be someone so you can really relate to them.
Yes, and they're often quite slow burn. Sometimes I read reviews where someone says, "Oh, it's a bit of a slow burn," and I think, well, yeah, but that's part of the genre. It's a sort of you want to unsettle the reader and think, "Oh, hang on, what's going on here?" There's and then as the novel progresses, you realise there's something really to be worried about, and you're fearful for the main character. It's particularly if you empathise with them, and you want to see them overcome whatever this is that's haunting them or plaguing them, so so they usually have quite relatable heroes or heroines, and as you say, you can imagine yourself in that situation.
Obviously, another key aspect of the psychological thriller are twists and turns and reveals. There's always a few of those. How do you approach those as a writer?
It's getting increasingly difficult to come up with really hooky, twisty novels because, so many things have already been done. And of course, readers expect them now and they love them. We all love a good twist. We all love the rug to be pulled from under us, don't we? But it is hard. I mean, sometimes they come naturally and they come organically and you just think, oh, wow, that would be a great twist. Other times you have to sort of think about them and think about different twists you could have and cross out the most obvious, because you can bet your life that, seasoned crime fiction readers will be guessing and trying to work out, and you don't want to make it too easy for them. But at the same time, you don't want to completely blindside them with something totally impossible. There has to be some kind of clue that could have happened. Otherwise, readers get a bit cross then. If a sort of twist comes out of nowhere and involves someone they've never even met, that would be a little bit cheating. So it's hard. It's quite hard to do. But when you get a good twist, it's a great feeling. You think, yes.
So obviously you say you enjoy reading the genre yourself. Are there any books that have really given you some memorable oh my goodness moments, or that you've just really loved?
Yes, of course. I mean, Claire Mackintosh's latest is brilliant. Gosh, it's not what you think. Is that what it's called? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I hope I get the title right. It's not what you think. That's got a really good twist about sort of a quarter of the way through. I mean, she's brilliant at that, absolutely brilliant. But I don't think all thrillers have to have twists. I mean, obviously, sales departments and booksellers and marketers love those twists because they can sell the books. The twist you won't see coming and all that sort of thing. But personally, I think if a book is well written and it's a good story and you really empathise with the character, even if you guess the twist or there isn't a twist, but there's a lot of suspense and a lot of tension in a book, then for me that's enough. But I know there's a great appetite for twists at the moment. Everyone's trying to come up with the next big one. I'm hoping to do that in my next book, but what can you do? You just have to write the novel you can write at the end of the day. You can't force these things.
Yeah. Oh, so are you allowed to tell us anything about the new book that you're writing at the moment? Or
Not really, not really. Although, well, one thing I can tell you is that I mean, I'm out of contract at the moment because I finished my Troublemaker was the my last book, and so I'm now coming up with ideas for the next one. But the one I'm working on at the moment features older protagonists because I'm on social media and my niche now is sort of about positive aging and encouraging women or anyone really um, who have perhaps writing ambitions or any kind of creative ambition or any ambition at all, that it's never too late. Because as I say, I was 55 when I got my first novel published. So I'm very passionate about people believing that they can still do things and that age shouldn't hold them back. So my next novel, I'm very keen to have older protagonists. So I've got four women in their sort of 50s and 60s because, although lots of my readers are younger, the bulk of book buyers and readers do tend to be older women. You've only got to go to any book festival or book event and look out over the audience to see that. But I think having an older protagonist is encouraging, not just for older women themselves but for younger women too, because it shows you that actually life, you can still have adventures when you're past 50. It doesn't all stop. So yes, it will be about older women, and it gets set in a small town, and it will involve a newcomer joining an established friendship group. I think that's all I can say about it at the moment.
Oh, that sounds great. No, I love that. And the Thursday Murder Club books have been so popular. Obviously, different genre to you, more sort of cozy
Yes.
crime. But I think that people are really connecting with older characters.
I think so. I think our time has come. Yes, indeed.
No, you're totally right though. I enjoy it, and it's like I've often said as well, like yeah, in literature we often get a little bit more representation of older characters. On film, it's still so far behind, and I'm just like, I really want to
Yes.
see those older actresses because I'm like, I look up to them. Like for me,
Yes.
that's
Exactly.
the future. So I think that's it. It should be
Yeah.
really positive.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. And I think for a lot of women as well, women particularly, um, because if you've had children or you're going child rearing and working, often our own sort of ambitions and creative ambitions are sort of put on one side, and it's sort of when you've got any time left over, then you did dedicate it to that. So I think it's a time, particularly sort of 45, 50 onwards, perhaps when children are slightly older, when you've got more time to think about what is it I want to do. When I've got time to myself, what do I want to do? And it's a time when you can be, perhaps not everybody can because of different people's working commitments, but perhaps a little bit more, carve out a little bit more time just for you to focus on what you want to do. Um, yeah. So
No, I think that's a I think that's a really important thing. I think it can it can be hard for anybody, but particularly I think for mums. I have a toddler, so
yeah.
I'm familiar with this.
It's so tiring, isn't it? And everybody says, "Oh, you get up at 5 and do some writing then," and you think, "Oh God, I'm too exhausted at 5. I just want to sleep." I was never a getting up at 5 person. I mean, funnily enough, I can get up quite early now, but then I haven't got kids, and it's sunny and it's gorgeous, and I know, because I now write full time, so I know that if I do get up at 5 and do some writing, and I'm tired at 3, I can have a little afternoon nap.
Oh, that's great. Naps. Honestly, I used to nap. I haven't napped in a very long
Oh,
time.
naps are wonderful, aren't they? Oh dear.
So that's interesting because obviously you've talked about some sort of the sort of the classic advice being get up early, write every day, things like that. But what do you think is what is the advice that you give to people, especially people who are maybe starting a little bit later?
Okay, the advice I would give is, well, try and write every day, but don't set yourself ridiculous goals like I've got to write 1,000 words a day or I've got to write a novel in a year. Don't do that. Just 100 words a day, 200 words a day, a couple of paragraphs, um, And often if you set yourself a very small goal, you will for sure exceed that. And if you say I've only got to write 200 words today, you'll probably end up writing 400. Do you know what I mean? Because you haven't got that pressure on you. Also, I would always recommend joining a writing group. Or if you can't find a writing group, starting your own. That's what I did when I moved to Frinton, when I was writing Who Did You Tell and the Rumour. I wanted to join a writing group, and there wasn't one in the area that I could find, or not one that suited me. There were ones that sort of, short stories and poems. I didn't want that. I wanted a group of people who all were serious about writing novels and getting them published. And so I spoke to the local bookshop owner, Caxton's Books in Frinton, and they said, well, why don't you start one? Do a little flyer and we'll hand it out at our book club. And that's what I did. And I managed to get together about 7 or 8 like-minded people. We're still friends now. And we gave each other feedback, and we met once a month and started off meeting in the bookshop, then went and met in each other's houses, and probably had a little bit of Prosecco and nibbles as well. I don't know, that sort of crept into it as well. And that's what happened. And I was with that group. I was with that group having a lunch meeting, or I say meeting, having a lunch with them when I got the news that I'd got a publishing deal, when my agent rang me. So it was lovely to be able to celebrate with them, because I felt I owed a lot to them as well. So I definitely recommend either joining a writing group and not being too precious about getting feedback, because you need feedback. You need constructive criticism, because it's very easy to think that your novel's perfect, and because you can't see what's wrong with it. And then when you have other readers saying, oh, I love this bit, but I didn't understand that bit, really listening to that and taking those that feedback on board, that's what I would recommend, definitely.
Well, that's lovely. So of your group, has anybody else been published so far?
A few of them have successfully independently published, and one of them, she hasn't had novels published, but she's had a lot of short stories published in women's magazines. So she's doing really well with that. So they have done really, really well. I always say it's everybody wants a traditional publishing deal, but it's, if you are going to I've never considered independently publishing, because basically I wouldn't want to do all the other work that comes with it. But if you are going to do it properly, and there are authors like L.J. Ross who have had a phenomenal success publishing their own work, who are now traditionally published because they've done so well that agents and editors have snapped them up. So it does happen.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite a different, I imagine that it's actually the publishing landscape is probably different now to when, the Rumour was published.
I think it is, yeah, definitely. There's more competition. The market is even more saturated, I think. But that doesn't mean, I think there's always room for thrillers. People will always want to read psychological thrillers. You've only got to look at how popular crime drama is on TV. That tells you all you need to know, really, doesn't it? I was lucky enough that The Rumour my first novel was made into a TV series that came out last September on Channel 5. And it's quite different from the book. There are very similar scenes. The essence of it is the same, but it's quite different. But it's it's interesting, and I've had a lot of new readers having seen that. They've now come and read the book. It's a popular genre for sure. Crime fiction is, yeah.
That's very interesting, though, seeing your work adapted. That must be kind of a funny experience as a writer, because it's a whole different vision.
It was quite surreal, and I did actually go out because it was filmed in Budapest, and funnily enough, lots of TV dramas are now filmed out there because there's quite a good infrastructure for filming, and probably cheaper as well than doing it in the UK. And I got to visit the set, and I was an extra in episode 1 in the book club scene. So I asked, I thought, you know what, I've got to ask, because this, I mean, it would be lovely if it was, someone made a TV series out of one of my other books. Hopefully they will one day, but I thought it might be my only time, so I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask if I can be in it. So that was an experience as well, having a little cameo. I didn't say anything, but I was in the book club, sort of, laughing and looking shocked at suitable places, and sitting on opposite Emily Atack and Rachel Shenton, thinking, "Oh my God, they're talking lines that I've written." Crazy.
That's wonderful. That's the absolute perfect scene for you to be in there in the bookshop. That's
oh yeah, definitely.
There'll be. I'm sure there must have been a few viewers being like, "Is that?" She wrote the book.
I did have a couple of people say that, but I can't keep a secret to save my life. So I did sort of I told friends and family. I wish I hadn't, because it would have been lovely for them to think, "Oh my God, there she is." But I couldn't keep it to myself. I'm too much of a kid. Had to blab.
Well, it's a pretty exciting thing. I don't think most of us nowadays, it would be all over social media.
Exactly. It would, wouldn't it? Yes, you're right.
So, wonderful. And so we're going to be talking about all of these things at Grey Central Library on the 2nd of June. We always host a number of events at libraries across Essex for the Essex Book Festival. What are you most looking forward to about the event?
Oh, well, I love libraries. I don't think I'd be a writer today if it weren't for libraries. But when I was a little girl, my mum always used to, because I was born and brought up in Chelmsford in Essex. That's my Essex connection. And she always took me to the library every week, and I'd get the full quota of books out. I think it might have been 9 or something, and I'd just tear through them. Because although they bought me books as well, and I used to spend my pocket money on books, I couldn't buy all the books I needed to read. So I obviously went to the library and satisfied my reading habit that way. So I love libraries. I have a strong Essex connection. As I say, I was born in Chelmsford. In fact, I've done the Essex. I did an event at the Essex Book Festival quite a few years ago now. I think it might have been 2019 or 2020, can't remember exactly when it was, round about that time, at Chelmsford. So yeah, it's a great festival, and of course Essex is a big county, isn't it? Loads of sort of different venues. So but libraries, I'm a strong supporter of libraries. I'm really upset when I see little community libraries close down, because they can be the sort of the hub of a community. So it's really important to keep them going.
Definitely, yeah, that's definitely something we very much agree with at the book festival. We have a lot of events in the libraries, because it's just great to bring people through the doors as well.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
We're actually, so your event is one of over 100 that we are hosting during the month of June in 40 venues all across the county. It's quite a big thing, the Essex Book Festival, quite unusual, quite different to other book festivals, which is maybe just a weekend. What to you, obviously having had that experience as well previously, what to you kind of stands out about the Essex Book Festival? What makes it a bit more different and a bit special?
I think it's quite diverse, isn't it? It's a lot of different, there's not just focusing on one particular genre. Lots of writers, and some well known and some not so well known. So debut writers and also some established brands as well. And I think that's lovely. I think that sort of wide variety, fiction and non-fiction, because there's so many different reading tastes out there. And as you say, if you can bring people in at small libraries in sort of different villages and towns, it brings people together, and people can make friends, people can bond, and just share the love of reading. I mean, it's the National Year of Reading, isn't it, this year? So it's even more important, I think, to have festivals like this. And just to encourage. I think you do work with schools as well, don't you? So it's great to encourage that love of, especially with the landscape we're in now, with everything sort of internet, social media, and everyone sort of consuming things on the screen. It's so nice to go to an actual event with actual books. And, that's really important, isn't it? I think.
Yes, you're not actually the first author to say that. Actually, a lot of people have said actually having that sort of in-person experience is just, you just can't replicate it.
And it's lovely to meet readers, because without readers, we're not going to sell any books or have any books. Readers are the sort of lifeblood, aren't they, of the industry. So yeah, it's great to meet actual readers and to listen to their questions, which can be very interesting sometimes.
Do people ever sort of ask you things and you're like, where on earth did you get that idea?
Sometimes, yes. There might be the odd question I can't answer, in which case I'll just sort of turn it into another answer, But yeah, no, most people are just very curious. Lots of people have been curious about the Rumour and the whole TV thing. But I find also a lot of people that go to events also have a desire to write, or perhaps are writers as well, and it's helpful and encouraging to them to see how other writers have got through, and how they plan, and how they approach the writing craft itself. So yeah, it's just great to meet readers, really. I mean, yeah, I love getting messages from readers on social media, but it's even better to meet them in real life and sign a book for them.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and we have a lot of events on this season for writers as well, including at
Good.
Essex Writers' House, and yeah, so which is really great, because yeah, obviously there are a lot of writers amongst us. So, but yeah, I do feel like meeting real published authors does sort of unlock a whole new thing.
Yeah, and it takes the mystique about it. Sometimes people think, oh, authors, we're just, ordinary people. Anyone can write a book. Anyone can write. It doesn't matter if you're not published. Writing can be a great source of comfort, and a great therapeutic sort of practice as well. So yeah, I'm a great advocate of writing through your feelings, and journaling and all that sort of thing.
Yes, I mean there's just so many different forms, aren't there? So as many different forms of writing as there are of reading. Oh, anyway, it's been absolutely wonderful to speak to you today. Thank you so much. We are really looking forward to seeing you on 2nd of June at Grays Central Library. It's coming up very soon, so we'll be seeing you soon.
It is, isn't it? Yes, very soon. I can't wait.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye
Bye.
bye.